They say the truth is hard to weaponize. They only injured when they telling lies. The devil feel the shame when revolutions finally televised. You've been advised. Crafting narratives incentivized when lies are uplifted. Being candid gets you penalized.
Giannis Antetokounmpo has now been traded to the Miami Heat, and with that news, one of the lottery picks, the number 13 overall pick, has now been moved from the Miami Heat to the Milwaukee Bucks. And with that news, I'm going to go ahead and drop my last mock draft today. Going over the post Giannis trade mock draft. Going to make sure I try to get that out before the draft comes on later today. So without further ado, I'm going to try to run through these pretty quickly. Here is your mock draft in under 10 minutes. We're going to go through all 30 picks real quick, and I'll explain my rationale very quickly. Pay attention. Let's get into it. So the number 1 overall pick is going by the Wizards, and the number 2 overall pick, you have the Jazz. I believe this is going to be some type of trade. In some way, shape, or form. I'm not going to form with trade details. I just think some way, shape, or form, the Utah Jazz are going to trade for AJ Debonta. Why? AJ went to BYU. He's one of the only people who may commit to Utah long term. They have a problem keeping free agents. And so even though I think in terms of talent, AJ Debonta and Darren Peterson are right on the similar tier. You may put AJ a little higher because of the height and length, but Darren Peterson also has clearly the skill and IQ advantage at this point. So it can go either way in terms of that. But we have these similar prospects. Darren Peterson is a guy who has some health concerns and the fact that most guys don't want to play in Utah. So if you have a guy who's a generational talent by many people's estimation in AJ Debonta, who also may want to be the only people who would stay there in Utah, you get that guy. So I think somehow they'll trade it, even if they have to give up Ace Bailey or something. So anyway, with that being said, I think number 1 will go AJ Debonta, traded to Utah. Number 2 will go Darren Peterson, and somehow that will end up with the Wizards, because I don't think, the Wizards care as much. Number 3, I think Memphis goes with Cam Boozer. I've seen a lot of people speculate Caleb Wilson because of the run and jump. I think a lot of times when you're constructing teams, you have to think complementary, not keep doing the same thing. Just because Ja runs and jumps doesn't mean he needs someone to run and jump with him in that way. You probably need a change of pace. When Ja drives in, he wants someone who's going to kick out and knock down shots reliably, which Boozer does a lot better at this stage of his career than Caleb Wilson. He also projects to maybe do that a lot better, as well as half-court, slow, methodical scoring, which Ja, again, doesn't do the best. He's better in transition. So if you have a guy that can change the pace, kind of throw the ball down to, and give you more of that mid-post buckets, which I think Cam Boozer can do, I think you get that guy. Number 4, I have the Bulls going with Caleb Wilson. I've heard some Josh Giddey trade rumors out there, potentially with the Suns and other pieces. If they trade Josh Giddey, this makes it a better fit because, again, Josh Giddey, not the best shooter, was shooting less than 20% in the playoffs for the Thunder. A little bit better off the dribble than he is as a spot-up shooter, which you saw the improvement when he got to Chicago and they put the ball in his hands. Still a tall playmaking guard, has some value. But if you have Josh Giddey, Matthias Buzelas, and then you draft Caleb Wilson, and it's not like you have a bunch of snipers around you, that is not a recipe for success. And I don't know if Josh Giddey is the guy preventing you from making the best pick. So I think Caleb Wilson is going to be the pick here for number 4, which brings me to the Clippers getting number 5. And I'm going to switch it up and go Michael Brown Jr. So Michael Brown Jr. in this one, I'm putting him above Darius Acuff. And I don't think on a player basis, 1-to-1, Michael Brown is better than Darius Acuff. Darius Acuff has clearly a higher upside. He has that kind of lead guard feel. But Michael Brown has the versatility upside, and when you have a team like the Clippers who just traded for Darius Garland, who are not really looking for a lead guard, because how much better is Acuff than Garland is who you would have to compare it to. We don't know. And so I think when you can get a guy who can play with Garland or without him in Michael Brown, who's a really good playmaker, who also can play defense and knock down shots at a high clip, I think that may be the most logical move at this stage for the Clippers. So I have them going Michael Brown. And therefore, Brooklyn gets the start they need in the next pick, number 6, with Darius Acuff. I have them selecting him out of Arkansas. Again, very promising young guard. Could be one of these new all-star type of guards in the future. But with smaller guards, you kind of always have to see how well their game is going to translate to the next level, because it's a lot of IQ and decision-making things, which you have to see how he navigates that. But I got them going Darius Acuff. Number 7, I have the Sacramento Kings going with Kingston Fleming. And so, again, some people have Keaton Vogler around this spot. But I view Keaton Vogler more like a combo guard, even more like a 2 guard a little bit. Again, I see more Evan Fournier than point guard. So some people have him more like a point guard, like a playmaking tall guard. I look at him more like a 2 or off guard who can really provide shooting, who also can play on the ball. And that's what Keaton Vogler can do. But Kingston Fleming is more of that traditional lead guard, and I think that's what the Kings need at this point in time. They need someone who can get them excited, who they can put the ball in their hands, can galvanize the city. I also think Kingston Fleming is just a really good kid. If you hear him speak, that a lot of people can clearly get behind. And yeah, I think if you put him in Sacramento and kind of let him, do his thing, I think you can get the best out of him. And I really see them doing that. Atlanta at number 8, they have to go size here. Ademara has been mocked to Atlanta pretty much for everyone. I think unless someone else takes him ahead of this, whether Brooklyn, who just traded away their big man as well, they may go this way, but we don't know. I think Brooklyn's looking for more of a star, and if no one else grabs him, I think Atlanta will go ahead and get Ademara. Has the size, has the feel, has the touch. We've been watching his pre-draft workouts. His jump shot looks good. Again, take that with a grain of salt because a bunch of people's jump shots look good during this time, but I do think there's something to that. It's a little bit of a slower release, so he may have to work on that to really get that off in NBA games, which is a different ball game. But Ademara is a guy I really like out of Michigan, and so yeah, I think they go there and don't make it too complicated. Which brings us to number 9, which is the Dallas Mavericks, and I have them now taking Keaton Vogler. Again, a guy who can play on the ball, off the ball, and if you have Kyrie, don't have Kyrie, whatever you're doing, he's a guy who can fulfill that role, and he does the skill set, which is the most premium in the NBA, which is shoot the ball. He's an elite shooter at 6'6", so if nothing else, he can provide value there. Again, with that frame, he should at least be a solid, passable defender. And he also showed some promise in the tournament. Like, he showed more of his chops, even though his game kind of looks a little bit more flimsy sometimes. He was able to make some tough finishes and showed me a lot, so he may have some more on-ball potential long-term than I'm giving him credit. And so I hope that he, pans out that way. Number 10, now we get interesting. This is where the Giannis trade occurred, and I have them taking Nate Ament. So Nate Ament out of Tennessee is a guy that coming into this year was supposed to be a top 5 pick. Everyone was excited for his potential. He has that KD-ish type of body archetype, around 6'10", long forward that everyone's looking for. But far from a KD-ish type of skill set still. Struggled really heavily early on in the season. Started finding himself a little bit more later, but still has a ways to go in terms of that. Now, some people look at him more like a 3-and-D potential type of guy because he has a 6'10", with long arms and has a nice shooting touch. So you can see the potential there. But I think you have to be a little bit more patient with his development. And I think Milwaukee's the perfect place to do that. They just got rid of Giannis, and they've done this type of experiment with a Giannis before. Not saying that Nate Ament is Giannis or can be Giannis. It is just a proof of concept that is there that they have proven. So I haven't taken him at number 10. Number 11, Golden State. I haven't taken Hans Steinbeck out of Washington. I had this also in my last mock. I just feel like it just makes sense for them. It's a very Golden State pick. He helps out with size. He's not a true big, can play right now. They just gave Steve Kerr an extension, so I'm just extending their philosophy. Let's go ahead and get Hans Steinbeck to play alongside Quentin Post and some of these guys. Number 12, OKC. I'm going to have them go ahead and get Yaxel Lindenberg. This is a team who's trying to win now, and this is one of the most ready-to-play win-now players that we have, an older prospect. He's a guy who we can see what they do with guys like Jalen Williams, and they already gave away Aaron Wiggins, and they may be creating some room on that wing spot. So Yaxel Lindenberg, we're going to slide him in and have him help them on the wing immediately. And so that's why I got OKC taking at number 12. Number 13, Milwaukee is back up. Again, 2 picks. This is the one that they got from Miami. And I think with this one, they go ahead with Braden Berries. Braden Berries is an interesting guy, a combo guard. Kind of gives me a little bit of Monta Ellis vibes just in terms of like his build and, where it's like, is he better as a 2 guard or a lead guard in between there? Well, Milwaukee, again, because you have a lead guard in Ryan Rollins, you got Tyler Hero, you got a bunch of different guys in the Miami trade. You don't necessarily need him to have a clear role. You're just kind of accumulating talent in this phase of your rebuild and letting guys play. And Braden Berries has shown that he can play. He can shoot. He likes to defend. He can get downhill. And, you can do a lot of different things with him. You've seen the success of other combo guards like Jared McCain, who is a better shooter for sure, but still there's clearly a role like that he can carve out in the NBA. And I think Milwaukee may be the place for him at number 13. Charlotte at number 14. They need front court help, so I have them taking Morez Johnson Jr. out of Michigan. We've seen them have success with guys like Moussa Diabate, these smaller, switchable defenders, and Johnson provides that. He plays hard. I still think they need a big, so like Kalkbrenner, but we'll see what they do with him or how they feel about him. Chicago. This is where I have a controversial pick, and with the 15th pick in the draft, I have Chicago taking Ibuka Okore out of Stanford. This guy is one of my favorite players in the draft. I think that somebody is going to get a steal in this guy. We're talking about a guy who's 6'2", with a 6'7" wingspan, who was 7th in the nation in scoring last year, over 23 points per game as a freshman. And even though he has a 6'2" listed height, he plays much bigger than that. If you look at him, he has those broad, muscular frame. You know, he has that Nigerian Igbo type of motherland frame, while being a very crafty, creative guard. Was 35% from 3 last year on over 5 attempts as a lead guard, taking a lot of deep step back threes. If you go watch his film, getting downhill, finishing well, has a very good pace. He kind of reminds me of Dennis Schroeder on offense, how he's moving. But what makes him super interesting is on the defensive end, he kind of has a Davion Mitchell type of feel. He is a disruptor, very quick, extremely long arms, very smart guy, and really just takes the ball away from guys. Like, his steals are insane. If you go watch his defensive tape, like, again, it gives you that Davion Mitchell type of feel. So if you guys have a guy who has the offensive potential is like a Dennis Schroeder, but a defensive potential like a Davion Mitchell, because neither have the other thing, that creates a really interesting player. And I think for the Bulls, that could be something that's really interests them, especially if they got Caleb Wilson or somebody like that early on, and he can really be a steal in my opinion. So I have him jumping up to number 15. Next, my hometown team, the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, parts of their rebuild is going to depend on what they do with Ja or don't do with Ja. But I have them right now taking Kareem Lopez with this pick. This is a big physical guard or forward. Can do a lot of different things. Can defend, get downhill, has improved his jump shot. And so I think he can just go ahead and add to the depth there with their wings there. Cedric Howard, Jalen Wells, and those guys are doing really well. They can just go ahead and add some wing depth around either Ja or whoever you are planning as your future lead ball handler, which I think may just be keeping Ja. OKC again is up, and here I'm going to have them add some more front court help with Chris Sanak Jr. out of Houston. This is a big versatile wing. Again, Jalen Williams, we'll see what we see. We'll see what happens with that contract, because we see how impactful he was. Even though you're a smaller guy in height, if you're strong and can kind of insulate Chet as the kind of roamer defender and also space the floor and make reads, which I think Sanak can do all of those things, I think that can help OKC right now. I think he can play right now. This is a guy who's very skilled at this moment, maybe has some defensive limitations, but around that OKC historic defense, you may be able to be insulated in that way. So I have them go ahead and take Chris Sanak at number 17. At number 18, we have the Hornets again back up, and they're going to go Cameron Carr here out of Baylor. Now, Cameron Carr is like the prototypical 3-and-D in the modern NBA. He has extremely long arms, about a 7-foot wingspan at 6'7". Shoots the ball really well, kind of like that KCP mold. There was a time in the NBA where if you were thinking 3-and-D 2 guard, you're thinking KCP because he just fits that mold perfectly. I think Cameron Carr has the potential to be exactly that out of Baylor. And so, yeah, I got them taking him to add some defense and versatility to them. Toronto at number 19, I have them taking Christian Anderson Jr. out of Texas Tech, son of highly skilled NBA trainer. And they need a point guard. We saw this in the playoffs. Quickly, I don't think is a long-term solution there. And so you got a guy who's really skilled in Christian Anderson out of Texas Tech. Maybe you take him. Maybe he's that guy. I think you have to go ahead and give it a shot. San Antonio, number 20. Now, here it was an interesting pick because I didn't know if I wanted to go front court to try to do the same thing for Wemby as they're doing with Chet. I don't know if I wanted to go back court because we saw that they needed a lot of ball handling and creation. We also don't know what's going to happen with Fox. And we saw guys like Jordan McLaughlin were getting in the game in playoff games for them. I don't think that's ideal for them. So I have them taking someone who's ready to play and can make shots right now because shot making has a premium. And I have them taking Bennett Sturts out of Iowa. And so I think this is a good San Antonio pick because Bennett Sturts had a really good showing, even in the tournament when they lost. I mean, but he was on one. And one thing that guy can do is he can shoot. He's a little bit older of a prospect. He knows what to do out there. He's ready to play right now. And yeah, shot making that a premium, and he can create some off the dribble. So I got them taking Bennett Sturts out of Iowa. And it also just seems like a good fit. He's a kind of a San Antonio type of guy. Next, 21, I have the Detroit Pistons taking LeBaron Feilan out of Alabama. So in this mock draft, LeBaron Feilan has dropped a little bit from my other one, not because of anything that he's done, just because of how the order of the teams have kind of panned out. But I really like LeBaron Feilan. This is a guy who, again, if you watch my other mock, I compare him a little bit to AJ Mitchell in the way that he moves. If you watch them, they're really slow and methodical in terms of how they get downhill. A lot of spins, a lot of quick change direction between the legs. Boom, boom, boom. They kind of like to walk you down methodically. And LeBaron Feilan also has defensive chops. So His 3-point percentage took a big jump last year. So we'll see what they do, but I like them taking LeBaron Fine. If you watched Detroit in the playoffs last year, it's one thing for sure, and they need more guard creation outside of Cade, take some pressure off. So LeBaron Fine may be the guy to do that, give them some of that creation off of the bench. Next, we have Philadelphia taking Jaden Quintans. So this revolves around the Embiid uncertainty. Of course, we saw Embiid finally show some healthy games last year in the playoffs, but we still are a long ways away from Embiid being, healthy for a season. We'll see if they keep him or trade him. I heard some talks with Boston earlier, and so I don't know what will happen with that. But regardless, Jaden Quintans is a very talented young big man out of Kentucky, can do a lot of different things, has some injury concern as well. So I don't know if they want to get down on that type of roller coaster ride again. But hey, he may be worth a shot because the guy can play. He's young and extremely talented. So I have him taking Jaden Quintans out of Kentucky in Philly. Number 23, Atlanta. I have them taking Allen Graves. They got this pick from the Cavs. I got them taking Graves out of Santa Clara. This is a guy who's a versatile forward who can really shoot it. Shot over 41% last year. And again, shooting is a premium. And if I'm the Hawks, I got a playmaking point forward guy in Jalen Johnson who really struggled in the playoffs last year as a primary initiator. But one thing to really help guys who are going to get better at those type of things, even though they'll have to work on their individual skill sets over the summer, but just surround them with shooting, because the more open the court is, the more room for error you have on your attacks towards the goal. And I think getting a guy who can really shoot it while being a solid team defender is what the Hawks can really use at 23. 24, New York Knicks. We need ready to play. I think they can go ahead and get Isaiah Evans out of Duke. Isaiah Evans is a guy who I think is also very underrated. If he's grabbed at 24, he can easily, in my opinion, be a top 10 player in the draft. And if you get a top 10 player at like 24, I think that's a steal. He may not have a lot of the other physical tools that just jump out on paper in terms of like height, wingspan, and things of that nature to try to grab him earlier than that for some teams. But if you're a team like New York who just needs a guy who can play, Isaiah Evans can do that. He competes on both ends, can shoot the ball, can get downhill and finish, can defend. And so I think this is a perfect fit for New York. I think I can see him making an impact next year, even off the bench probably, and more of a role that way, but still. 25, the Lakers. I have them going ahead and taking Dylan Swain. You have Luka and AR. I think they're trying to negotiate that deal at this point in time. At this point in the game, you just need defensive wings. Okay, you still have Ayton down low. So we'll see what they do with him, Rui. So you got that. You need some guys who can guard the ball. We saw it last year when they took Adu Thero, and he showed some flashes even when you saw him play. Again, that popping athleticism at that big, strong physical wing you can insulate guys like Reeves and Luka with. And I think Dylan Swain fits that mold, and he's a little bit more ready to play than even Thero was last year, more of a project player. So I think they can do that. And even with those type of guys, Luka and AR, the other thing is they take such difficult off the dribble jump shots that you may even be able to hide Swain's weakness, which is he's not a great shooter at this stage in his career at 6'8". But again, on that team, it may not matter. Or this may be a guy that even if you get him, he may make an impact the next year, even though I know the Lakers are trying to win right now. They may even trade this pick, but who knows? I think if they keep it, though, that's a good fit for them. Denver. I have them taking Cole Pete here. I think this is a great understudy for Aaron Gordon. Cole Pete is clearly not a perfect prospect. A lot of questions on how he'll be impactful in the NBA, but I think if there's any answers to those questions, Aaron Gordon holds those answers because he has a similar athletic profile, 6'8", 6'10", around, Aaron Gordon and Cole Pete. But very athletic, strong builds, can be those versatile forwards. Aaron Gordon also has some jump shot concerns coming into his career, but he clearly has improved that and has now become a really good jump shooter, a plus jump shooter, and I think he can help Cole with that. And Cole can also help them with some physicality around the wings and the front court with some athleticism. And I think he can really thrive in that system around Jokic because, you don't have to create as much. One of his weaknesses is also self-creation. Well, you don't have to do that with Jokic. You just have to kind of cut. And you got Jamal Murray and other guys there to do those other things for you. So I like Cole Pete to Denver here at number 26. Number 27, I have Boston taking Henry Vasar out of North Carolina. Again, a stretch big, kind of fits their mold. We saw what they did when they traded for Vucevic, even though he didn't end up playing for them much. Again, this is a guy who's older, over the hill, but the idea is they want to be able to play a 5-out style offense or even a 4-out 1-in where they may not have, or maybe a 4-out 1-in with even two bigs. And so I think Henry can come in and play that role and fit their mold. We still have to see what happens with Jaylen Brown to see if they'll even be making the selection. So that may change it. But again, for right now, since they still have it, I'm going to have them taking Henry out of North Carolina. Minnesota from Detroit. I'm going to have them take Malik Thomas at number 28 from Arkansas. This is a talented young scorer who averaged 42% around from three last year on good attempts. He can play in transition. And we saw how young legs can really help a team like this with Terrence Shannon, what he was able to do. And this is a guy who shoots it a little bit better than Shannon at this point. And this can kind of help the spacing around Ant. Ant needs spacing. We saw them just get rid of Julius Randle. That should probably help that as well. If they're able to bring in a four-man now who can space the floor more traditionally, since they're kind of stuck with Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert also played really well for them last year. So they may be more enthusiastic about that prospect if they're able to space the floor around him. And Julius Randle just wasn't a consistent enough shooter to do that. Number 29, we have Cleveland. I have them for this trying to solve their wing issue by taking Joshua Jefferson out of Iowa. You know, Cleveland has not been able to find a sustainable small forward since LeBron. They tried it. They went after DeAndre Hunter, Max Strus. All these different guys have not really panned out at that area. Now, Joshua Jefferson's got it kind of reminds me of Kyle Anderson. Like, he's not as slow as Kyle Anderson is, but the methodical playmaking, the vision, he has all those things. And he's also really big and strong and physical and can guard. Very switchable defender. Now, projects a little bit more like a four-man than a three, but in today's NBA, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to depend on how well his shot goes down, whether or not he can play that spot. Because if you're next to Mobley, Allen, we'll see what they do there. You're going to have to be able to make shots. But even if he's coming off the bench, I think he can help this team with just a versatile wing. And last but not least of the first round, we have the Dallas Mavericks taking Zuby Ejiofor. This is a versatile big. We already have them taking a guard earlier, so we're going to have them go ahead and help out their front court. He can be more of a viable option if he can correct some of his jump shot concerns. But productivity, he was extremely productive at St. John. People raved about him, his leadership, his way he carried himself, his defensive versatility, able to guard out on the perimeter and guard inside. Those guys are now finding a home in the NBA. Again, if he shoots it, he'll play more. But I have Dallas going ahead and helping their front court depth with him. And that's going to round out the first round for me. That's my final mock draft post Giannis trade. We'll see what happens in the actual NBA draft today. I'm really excited to see how that goes. Like, comment, and subscribe. Follow the TikTok at Hoop Symmetry. We're still on our grind, up and coming channel. Again, I like to cover all things draft, bring balance to the conversations. And so we'll see what happens later tonight. But anyway, this is Coach Muhammad, and I'm out.